Let's talk to Ricardo. He is from ActivTrades. I'm not going to try and pronounce his surname today in case I embarrass myself, as I always do. Morning to you.
Morning.
Okay, three subjects. Let's talk about Bank of England, the Fed, and the Bank of Japan. Let's kick off with the Bank of England. What would you do if you were Mr. Carney today?
Well, the general consensus is that today an interest rate rise will be announced. I mean, this is already priced into the value of the currency. I think the latest number is about 90% expectation that there will be an announcement today. There's been some questions asked recently whether or not this is really guaranteed, as the UK economy doesn't seem to be going as well as it perhaps should be doing within the current context, globally speaking. And also there's, of course, the dark clouds of the Brexit negotiations and the different possible Brexit outcomes, which also cast a shadow over this. However, all of this actually should be a reason for Mark Carney to announce an interest rate rise now. If nothing else, it will be to give himself some ammunition should things start to go bad sometime later.
But that strikes me, the main reason to basically hike rates at the moment is contingency for the recession. Totally.
A great deal. Of course, there's other factors like inflation. Not avoiding the economy overheating. No risk of that over here. But for example, in the States, that is the case. But I think you're absolutely right, Nick. I think central banks are just trying to load up with tools that they can use when things next take a downturn. Yes, exactly. So yeah, absolutely right.
Okay, so the Bank of England, I think they've basically put themselves in a corner. Federal Reserve, we're talking about another 2 rate hikes this year. Mr. Trump's not happy with it, according to his Twitter accounts.
No, I mean there's an interesting history in the United States of clashes between presidents in office and so the United States presidents and the presidents of the Fed. So there's been Richard Nixon had some famous clashes. Lyndon Johnson as well accused the president of the Fed at the time of trying to make him lose the next election, etc. But in this case, President Trump does not like so much the way things are going because he wants to keep the dollar weak as part of his strategy of keeping America strong and boosting or creating the conditions for exports to grow. However, I don't think that it can do much at the moment. I mean, we've seen the latest figures. The American economy is growing above 4%. Inflation is within the target regions. So I think is a done deal. I mean, the outlook yesterday was pretty much aligned with the general expectation, as you said, of two more interest rate rises. The state of the economy was described as strong. Yeah. So I don't see any possibilities of that changing, and there was a clear reflection of this in the way the dollar behaved as it gained some strength against most currencies. The dollar index certainly rised only against the Japanese yen. That there was a very slight loss there.
Understood. Okay, so in terms of Japanese yen, Bank of Japan today, low interest rates set to continue.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it was an interesting lineup of statements that they've made. So on one hand, the Bank of Japan clearly stated that they will continue with very low interest rates for the foreseeable future. There was no indication whatsoever of a timeline to somehow ease that. But on the other hand, they said that their stimulus program will be flexible. So they added the words of flexibility to their stimulus program. So the immediate reaction of the markets was that the yields on Japanese treasuries have risen, I don't think this is very positive for Japan, because as this happened, many Japanese investors that have funds elsewhere where the yields are higher may start moving funds back to Japan, which will strengthen the yen. Of course, it's not in Japan's interest, because they are exporters, to have a strong yen. So we saw in the immediate aftermath of this a slight strengthening of the yen against the other major currencies. But I think the Bank of Japan will keep a very close eye on things, and should this start to impact the currency, they will very clearly come out and do something about it.
Understood. Right, just to wrap up, what's your favourite currency pair on the bull or bear at the moment? Is there anything obvious?
I would say the Turkish lira is a good candidate for being my favourite bear.
Yeah.
And possibly the dollar in the medium term as well, and the dollar, if for nothing else, because the tensions are still escalating on the so-called trade wars side of things. There was a further announcement, I think it was yesterday, that they will be putting up a 25% duty on 200 billion worth of Chinese imports. So this escalating in international trading tensions will more than likely feed the dollar and its status as a refuge asset. So probably would say in the medium term, dollar bull.
Understood. On that note, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Nick.